I do want to introduce our next speaker to you. As we think about a lot of things, we may want to take a look at what we can do to make sure that we comply with all the standards, both state and federal standards. And somebody who's here to talk to you about that this afternoon is Gordon Franzen. And Gordon is with Texas Education Agency. He works in the Methods of Administration unit that is part of the Program Monitoring and Intervention Division there at TEA. And, you may think right off the top of your head that he's sure somebody you do not want to show up at your school. But I promise if you did, you would be glad you had him there, because him and his team are excellent at being able to help schools do the things that it takes to help students. And that's really what they're there to do, and they've proven that to us over and over again. He has spent the last 15 years at the Texas Education Agency working in charter schools, CTE accessibility, and the MOA state coordinator for the past 2 years. So Gordon, we are proud and happy to have you here this afternoon. And if you will come up, we will turn our attention towards you for a few minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The main thing that we wanted to get to is to kind of give you an overview of what methods of administration is. And how many of you out there are career and technology education directors? And how many of you are new? And how many of you have read in your contract that says duties as assigned? That's what I'm talking to you about this afternoon. We're the duties as assigned. We normally will make contact with the superintendent. The superintendent will hand it off to assistant superintendent. Assistant superintendent then is going to hand it off to somebody that knows what the heck's going on, and that's the people sitting in this room. So welcome. Glad to see you guys here. The primary focus of MOA is to assess as to what students are doing as far as obtaining entrance into CTE. Those of you that are new probably have never heard the term PAR, and those of you that have been around for a few years may have, but PAR is a Program Access Review. Well, what happened to it is that we got new management in my division, and we're now the Division of School Improvement. I don't know that I've even updated the slides yet, but that just recently happened. We are a division of School Improvement Division, and the feds basically told us that we need to fall more in line with what they expect. The old PAR program was a part of the system that had to do with the PBMAS, and we looked at it, and the feds looked at it up in Washington, D.C., Office of Civil Rights, and they said you really need to have separation there. You're not getting enough activity at your smaller campuses. And so we moved away from the Program Access Review starting 2 years ago. We redefined ourselves as Methods of Administration. PAR was Program Access Review for admissions to CTE and Career and Technology. And so now we are Methods of Administration for access to CTE. The MOA basically gives the state the right to go in and review for civil rights, accessibility as far as programs go, as well as facilities. The primary goal of us being on site are really twofold. One is to ensure that facilities are accessible. The other is to ensure that CTE programs are accessible. And that's where it comes down, primarily working with counselors and with coordinators to determine that your programs are accessible to all students. There are a number of citations that we rely on. The primary thing that we focus on is Vocational Education Guideline, which was developed and became law in 1979. 1979. And so it's been around for a long time. Sometimes the state of Texas just did not take too strong a look at it. There are numbers of other legal statutes that basically color our reviews. In other words, we can fall back on these as needed to ensure that programs are actually accessible to students. You'll see highlighted here in each one of these guidelines and laws is that it prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And that's what MOA is all about. We're there to determine that numbers that pop up in front of us through our IT people, that districts in fact are not discriminating. And when I say that, we go out as we do our reviews, it's our intent to prove that to the feds that the numbers are wrong. The citations that I gave to you, they are in your PowerPoint. They're also on our website. You can actually find us now. You couldn't until this past year. We were under PAR. Now we are Methods of Administration. Again, this is going to fall under the SI School Improvement primary tag. Our goal this afternoon is to acquaint you with what the program is all about. That's going to begin with looking at some of the standard language. MOA, as I said, is a program that allows the state and federal government to ensure access to CTE programs. A CTE program is defined by the federal authorities as being at least 2 courses in a coherent sequence. It's not a 3 standard like we have in the state, but a 2 standard. And so as we come out to your district, if we find that you have a campus, and some of the early college campuses, we're having to slap them on the hand some, because sometimes the early college campuses will not have a coherent sequence. Under Chapter 74, all high schools have to have a coherent sequence. The subrecipient universe and the universe, basically we've got recipient, universe, and subrecipient. What that basically is telling you is that Texas obtains from the feds all of the money that comes to the state for federal programs. The district and campus then become the subrecipient. So if you hear me say subrecipient, I'll be talking about the campus that you may be a part of. So the programs that we're looking at are CTE programs that a district receives federal funding for. Does that only look at Perkins? No. If you're receiving funding for food, if you're receiving funding for Title I, if you're receiving for any of the title programs, and you have a CTE program, then you are in our sub-universe. Some more of the primary language targeting plan. How were you selected? Basically, the targeting plan has to go along with the ranked list. We have to submit to Washington, D.C., the Office of Civil Rights, every 2 years, a ranked list, and we obtain that from a targeting plan. The targeting plan basically is telling us, if we do a comparison of students on your campus to any of the protected classes, are your ratios potentially the same as your ratio of CTE? And so if you've got 100 students on your campus and 50% male, 50% female, and you've got 49% of your males in CTE, and you've only got 2% of your females in CTE, then you're going to have a discrepancy which is going to give you some points on our targeting plan. This results then in us creating a ranked list by assigning points. The higher the points, the more opportunity for you to get to see us. And so after we have created that ranked list, we have to go out every 2 years and visit 50 campuses. And this is a big change from what we were doing 2 years ago, in that we were visiting 50 districts. Well, when we went to Houston several years ago, they had 34 high schools and, I don't know, too many to count junior highs. We were there for almost 2 months trying to get it done. And so now we focus only on the campuses inside the district. So a district could have 4 or 5 campuses and only 1 or 2 of them be selected. And that would be based on the points that are received for that campus based on proportionalities that we have in our methodology. Basically, what we are looking at, we're looking at race and ethnicities, we're looking at national origin, genders, and we are analyzing the ratios based on those kiddos. At the end of the visit, you will receive a letter of finding. That letter of finding is going to be a long legalese from Washington that we have usurped, and we put in everything that we have looked at, and then we're also going to include with that a report that tells you exactly what we found. At the end of this, and this is probably the best part of this, is that you get to create a voluntary compliance plan. We're going to let you find out and correct your plans. Of course, we have to approve them, but we're going to let you decide how you're going to correct anything that we have found that is an issue. And I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but as we are doing the process, we work intently with districts and campuses trying not to find non-compliance. Because if we can help the district or campus come into compliance before we're there, then we don't have to hassle you for the next 90 days trying to get things up to standard for what we have to submit to the feds. Our overall program basically is a trickle down. It comes from OCR. OCR gives us the ability to and authority to do our reviews. They also oversee our reviews. So not only do we have to do a targeting plan every 2 years, which they have to approve, which yesterday they told me I had to resubmit mine, but hopefully it'll be done in the next week or two. And so we have to submit a targeting plan, and then we also have to do a report on all of the issues that you will see in your letter. And they give you, well, attaboy, 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 oh, but by the way, and then we have to go back in and make some corrections. And so that's kind of the process, is that we're going to try to get you up to speed and have no non-compliance, if at all possible, before we leave your campus. There are some situations where that does not occur. There are things that have to be created. There may be facility issues that have to be corrected that cannot be handled during the time we're on your campus, but we're certainly going to do our best to try to bring you into compliance before we actually have to submit a report to Washington. The big thing that has changed between PAR and MOA is the scope. Those of you that were around in the PAR era, we visited football stadiums, we visited locker rooms, we visited just about every place in a building, and as a result we found major non-compliance as far as CTE goes. Does that mean that we were wrong in doing that? No. If you have issues with your facilities as far as compliance with for ADA accessibility, it needs to be taken care of. It's just not a part of the focus of MOA. Our primary focus now is CTE and graduation of students that are in CTE courses. So we're going to continue to look at accessible facilities, comparable facilities, and access to CTE, and those are primarily the 3 things that we will be doing on campuses when we get there. What we report to Washington are the things that they're popping up on your screen. What we'll have, there's a guide that goes along with these, and so I'm not going to try to explain each one of them, but these are the things that we report back to Washington on after we have done a review. Our pre-visit, basically our timeline has been such, and I'm hoping to extend it some next year. Basically our timeline, we extended it this year in that we called districts early to see if they had a coherent sequence of courses. And you say, well, how would you not have a coherent sequence? Well, you've got some charters out there that may be very small. You may have some ninth grade campuses that may not have a coherent sequence. And so we called districts early on to see if they qualified actually for our review. So our pre-visit actually began early in June. We then presented to the districts the opportunity to come in and take a look at a TENT presentation, TENT, and we will be doing the same thing next year. So we will do the TETN. At that point, we will be sending out a notification letter, and we will be doing some phone conferences and request documentation. Our phone conferences can be anywhere from once or twice in a 6 weeks period to a weekly or a bi-weekly, depending on what the district needs from us to assist them in getting ready for our visit. We will have a detailed itinerary, and we're going to request documentation before we go. Those of you that were in the PAR era, you may or may not remember that we asked you to develop 29 folders, and in those 29 folders we asked you to kill about 40 trees. We had more paper being slung around, and we had 4 to 5 people, and it would take us a day and a half to go through the 29 folders. Well, we no longer are doing that. What we're asking you to do is very, very targeted at the indicators that we're going to look at. And so we're going to send a request for documentation, and what happens normally, at least so far, is that districts are able to supply us with PDFs or web links, and we're able to cut our week-long visit down into a day and a half or 2 days. Normally the visit is going, let me get back to this. This is what we're looking for methods of administration. This is the document that we will actually send out. There are 2 parts to that document. The first part of it has to do with accessibility. We will ask you to identify, have your architects identify for us the date and age that a building was built. And the reason we need to know that is that affects the standards that we use. We have 4 different guides that we have to acquaint ourselves with before we come to a district, depending on the number of buildings or the ages of buildings. So we can go all the way from readily accessible, which is pre-77, up through 2010, which is the most current ADA standard that we're expected to enforce. We ask you to identify your buildings by age. We ask you to present us with a map, and that map generally is going to be a campus level map, most likely a fire exit map, and we're going to have you color code that map the same as we are identifying here with the ages of the building. So when we go into, let's say, a readily accessible building where you really only have to have a clear pathway as compared to a 2010 building which you have to have full compliance on, the standard is a great deal different. And so when you get the request for information on this part of it, you need to be sure that you have identified buildings appropriately. If we don't have identification, we assume they're brand new. Not good for the district. The second part of the document request, we ask for, again, specific information that has to do with the guide that we will send to you, or that you can actually go and download off of our website right now if you should be selected next time around. Is there anybody that we're coming to see this fall? Fantastic. If y'all want to touch base, we can touch base after this presentation. I'm not going to let you ask questions right now, but what district are you from? Los Fresnos. Okay, great. You're one of mine. Good. And Dallas. Okay, that's one of the great ones. Okay, so we've got, and so one of the things that you will find as we are getting ready to come out, we have divided the state into size of programs, and so we might have a Dallas with a tiny building, which I believe they do. I think one of their campuses is considered tiny. And then we have Los Fresnos. I think they have maybe one large and one medium, or maybe a mega and a medium. I can't remember exactly. But it has to do not with the size of the campus, but with the size of the CTE program. So if you've got 100 kids on campus and 100 kids are in your program, and you may be compared with a campus that has 1,000 and only has 100 kids in the program. And so that's basically one of the ways that we're able to trickle down and get into some of the smaller districts, as well as get into some of the smaller campuses. But the information on the sheet allows us, if the district is able to provide us with enough information, that we don't have to spend 2.5 days or a day and a half looking at the 29 folders and the 8 or 9 trees that you have killed, plus staff standing over us saying, okay, we can show you that if you can't find it. What we will be doing with you in the pre-visit, we're going to send you this. We hope to get the information back 10 days prior to the visit. 15 days would be better for you, because our group right now is traveling every other week. And so we are in a week. This happens to be my in week, which is the reason I get to be here. But I was out last week. I'll be out again next week in the Houston area. So 10 to 15 days, if you can get the information to us 15 days in advance, that gives us time during our down week to communicate back with you. So for instance, I was communicating with a district this morning, and I said, well, I can't find in your special education information, I can't find where you're actually doing an assessment for your special ed kids that are going to allow them to be assessed and placed into CTE. Well, immediately the district out of Houston sent me about 60 pages worth of stuff to look at, so I probably shouldn't have asked. But anyway, they did have the information in there, and so that's an area that we're not going to have to probe with the district once we're there. This is just a continuation. You can see that we have got the indicators on the right-hand side indicate like a 2B. That is one of the indicators that you would be supplying us information with. We're asking for a PDF format and a web link. Last year we just asked for a web link, and with all of the security we have in our system at TEA, we blocked you. Okay, we couldn't get into those sites that in some of those areas. So this year we're asking if it is a web link, maybe you could shoot a screenshot of it and send it to us, so that we don't have to worry about our system. One of the areas that we will be asking you to look at prior to visit are folder reviews. Again, I keep referring back to PAR, but when we did the PAR, we did anywhere from 25 to 50 student folders, and they were all special education. We are no longer doing that. We now are focused on equal access to CTE, and it's for all of the protected classes. And so our basic goal is that we are going to have you demonstrate for us that you're in compliance. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, you as a district, as you're going through your documents and you're saying, well, here's one on Gordon Franzen. Oh, he doesn't have that. Well, here's one on Andrew Franzen. Oh, no, he doesn't have that. Here's one on Lynn Franzen. Oh, no, here's one. They have all the documents in there. That should be telling the district, I need to do a little bit of internal review, because we will be back. Okay, and so you need to be sure that anything that you find as an issue, that you're correcting all across the district, not just at the campuses that we are looking at. And I say we'll be back. We are giving you an allowance of 5 years. So once we have come to your district, we will not be back on an MOA visit for 5 years. No matter what your point total is, we may communicate that with you at some point, but we will not be on site visiting with you. So you've got a special ed side of the review, and you also have the regular ed side of the review. And so when you're looking at special education, we're going to have you identify one special education student that is in CTE that has all of the bells and whistles that should be there. Then we're going to ask you to identify 4 special education students that are not in CTE. And we're wanting you to demonstrate for us that those kids that are not in CTE had the same opportunities as the child that is in CTE. Same will be true then of your regular population. And so we're going to ask you to identify one student in CTE that has all of the bells and whistles, everything that you have done from grade 8 up through graduation almost, to help that student move forward and access CTE programs. And then we're going to have you pull folders from one of the classes that you have been identified for. It could be male, it could be female, it could be Hispanic, African American, special education, limited English, or Hispanic. So we're going to ask you to pull one folder from each one of those classes, and we're going to compare it against the model and everybody else. Did everybody else's receive the same opportunities as that student that is in CTE? And that is our goal, is to help the district do an internal review and also do a demonstration to us that all kids are being treated equal and have same opportunities to move into CTE. While we're on site, as I said, we have gone from a 5-day visit to generally it's going to be a half day at the central office. We'll do a brief entry meeting. That brief entry meeting is basically just to let you know who we are so that we're out on the campuses. You don't have your police pick us up. So it's not a very long entry meeting, but just to say, hi, here we are. Where do we go? Help us get set up. We will do a folder review. It may or may not be at the central office. It could very easily be done at the campuses with the counseling staff or the CTE staff at the campus that knows the individual students. We will do interviews, and we basically are going to be asking the central office, what is it you think is happening at your campus? And having been a high school principal, we're also going to ask those guys what's actually happening at the campus. And if they're not the same, then there may be an issue. Okay, so we're going to do the interviews both at the central office and at the high school to determine whether or not policies and regulations are in place. We also do a facility review. That facility review basically is you're going to walk the building with us. You will have somebody that has all the keys. You will have somebody that has a camera and a clipboard. You will take pictures. You will script and take pictures. We will do the same. At the end of the review, before we leave, we will share information to be sure that we're all on the same page. Because when we get back and do the exit interview with the superintendent, we don't want anybody saying, well, no, we didn't. That's not exactly what we saw. We want that to be finalized before we get into the exit. So again, we can go in and pat the superintendent on the back and say, hey, thank you for doing a good job, and we're out of here. The folder review we talked about, this is generally what if you are a fairly small campus, if you're a one high school campus, basically it is going to be a drive day for about half a day. We'll get there in about half a day at the central office, full day on the high school campus, exit at the end of the day, the second day. The guide that I'm going to not spend hardly any time on is on our website. We have got a guidance document. We have got this instrument basically is the report that you will receive. You will see that there are some areas on here that are called designated as being in compliance, non-compliance. You can see in this campus that we had 8 were in compliance, 7 non-compliance. We had 0 non-applicable for a total of 15. So as we go in and get ready to do the review, this title page is basically the executive summary is not a part of the guide that you'll download. This is going to be an insert into the page. But what we do is we'll go through the actual guide. We will designate areas that are in compliance, non-compliance. It automatically filters back to this page for us to look at. Financial assistance, and I just have this one popped in here. This is a new indicator. We started this last year. And so we will then look at to see if what is being required by federal law. And when you start to look at the guide, the thing that you have got to demonstrate for us are the issues on the left-hand side. And so where it says financial assistance under A, down at the bottom you see legal authority guideline VB. That is what you need to demonstrate for us. We have got some areas that identified in the middle there that are under the compliance of things that you can present to us so that we can say, okay, you are in compliance or not in compliance. But at the end of the day, the left-hand column in this report is the bottom line. So you can see there, and this is another one. This is kind of what the indicator 1 looks like. Again, you've got the annual non-discrimination. You've got ways that you can present information to us to demonstrate that that has occurred. You've got a checkbox there that says, okay, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. Blend that into a PDF and send it to us. At the bottom of the page, we have the most current wording that we would expect to find in your notification of CTE. The script sheets, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we will be doing as we walk through the review is we will have somebody from your area taking pictures and taking notes. The script sheet is the document that we will send to you to take notes on. At the end of the day, we will make sure that all of these are in correspondence, that they're the same thing. What will happen after that to show compliance is that you will then take an after picture to demonstrate for us that you're now in compliance. And so if we see that there was no, and this one it says needs handicap sign for the main office. This would indicate to me, just not having been on this review, indicates to me that the main office is not readily visible from the main entrance to the campus. And so this would be a citation that we would put down. So then you would come back, take a picture on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side is the picture that demonstrates for you that you are now in compliance. That was quick, down and dirty, and there's a couple of you that may want to visit with me afterwards. If you have more detailed questions. Is there questions from the group that might have questions about? Any questions? As I said, you are able to find us now on MOA. We have got all the legal citations. We have got the guide. We have got a guidance document that will take you through that. As I said, we will do a TETN presentation early summer, I hope, maybe spring, depending if we can get our targeted plan approved. Do some invitations early on and get the next round built in. Hopefully, we'll get to meet on a social basis, and I think that even if we are out on a professional basis, you'll find that our group is very easy to get along with. We're there to help you, help the kids as far as CTE goes. The next steps after the visit, there are some things that your district will be expected to do. Once you have got the visit document in hand, we generally will try to get that to you within 10 days. And that's another one of the things we were punished for by Washington, is that we had our PAR reviews were associated with PBMAS, and sometimes the PBAS reports would go out 6 months late. Well, that's not a guideline that Washington was happy with. So we will get our reports to you hopefully within 10 days. Within that 10 days, after you have received that document, we're going to ask your superintendent to do a receipt of report. Ideally, he's going to check on that, agreed, because we will have gone over that information with you before we have left, or else we'll still be in your district. We're not going to be leaving until we've come to a satisfactory agreement. We'll ask that your superintendent do what is called an ROR, sign that, send it back to us as a part of the final report. One thing I would tell you is that when we give you a timeline, don't be early. Send it in on the day we're asking for it, because the day we get it, the next phase kicks in. And so after we get the receipt of report, then you've got 45 days to voluntarily tell us how you're going to correct your situations. Most of the time, again, we will be giving you ideas, thoughts, some historic information about what could be done. Again, it is the district's decision as to what has to be done. We do have to approve it. Do not send the VCP in prior to 45 days, because after 45 days, then we're expected to have some kind of response in 90 days, in that your documents and corrections are complete. Now, when we're talking about facilities, we understand school happens. Okay, we understand that budgets are already done. And so if we're talking high dollar items, we will be willing to negotiate and work with you. And I guess that's the reason we come back to voluntary compliance, because we do work with you on timelines as far as any major renovations that might have to occur. So 90 days for the VCP to be completed. This is what the VCP is. I know you can't read it, but I know that nobody in the room is going to have to fill one out anyway. So you can go to our website, pull that down, and take a look at it. And that is the end of my quick presentation. Any questions at this point? Thank you very much.